President Trump laying down the law with Vladimir Putin and Russia, saying you have 10 days to make peace, agree to a ceasefire. So how is he going to do this? Is there teeth behind this ultimatum? The media says no. The media says it's all bluster. Does he have a plan? Yes, he does. He most certainly does. We're going to show you also an update on the Fed, who's deciding as we speak what to do about rates, as more solid econ data just dropped this morning, and the EU very upset about this final trade deal that they agreed to, and more stories as well from around the country, including how blatantly obvious the media is looking on this whole Ghislaine Maxwell story. They are sweating, folks. We'll look at that.
Make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
Russia this morning saying what Trump is doing is a major step toward war. So what exactly is he doing? Well, he just cut his deadline, his ultimatum to Vladimir Putin to make peace, agree to a ceasefire. He cut that from 50 days down to 10. Dmitry Medvedev posting on X this morning, Trump's playing the ultimatum game with Russia now. Is it 50 days or is it 10? He should remember two things. Russia isn't Israel or even Iran, and each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. Don't go down the Sleepy Joe road. Yikes. Never compare President Trump to Sleepy Joe Biden. So just for some context, 2 weeks ago, President Trump gave Russia 50 days to make a deal, agree to a ceasefire, or all hell breaks loose. Face secondary sanctions. Yeah, he's not thinking about going to war. He's not talking about kinetic conflict with Russia. He's talking about financial pain that will come to you if you don't stop all of this bloodshed. He's talking about real financial sanctions, 100% tariffs on Russian energy. Trump clearly coming to the realization now that this 50 days is irrelevant and won't make a difference. We know what the outcome will be. He's done with all of this. Trump telling reporters yesterday while standing next to Keir Starmer, this is important, we'll explain why, UK's Prime Minister, saying, I'm going to make a new deadline of 10 or 12 days, as there's no reason to wait 50 days anymore if you know what the answer already is. Watch.
I would have said 5 times we would have had a deal. I've spoken to President Putin a lot. I got along with him very well. But 5 times, and every time 4 times maybe, but we've had discussions. You and I have had discussions. Yeah. We thought we had that settled numerous times. And then President Putin goes out and starts launching rockets into some city like Kiev and kills a lot of people in a nursing home or whatever. You have bodies lying all over the street. And I say, that's not the way to do it. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed in President Putin. Very disappointed in him. So we're going to have to look, and I'm going to reduce that 50 days that I gave him to a lesser number because I think I already know the answer.
So the sanctions that people assume Trump's going to roll out would hit both India and China the hardest. India buys Russian oil. China buys almost predominantly Russian oil, Russian LNG. Now, potentially, this could be a huge deal. It could end up severely undercutting Trump's economic agenda back at home. He has to be very careful with this. But like always, Trump seems to have a few tricks up his sleeve. First, he's working on finalizing right now his last 2 big trade deals. He's in this home stretch with 2 countries, India and China. The same 2 countries who could force Russia to the negotiating table if they were to agree to no longer buy Russian energy. Likewise, something nobody's talking about yet is what just happened in Trump's meeting with Keir Starmer. Trump made this announcement, this 10-day ultimatum to Russia. He gave that ultimatum while meeting with Keir Starmer. He was standing next to Keir Starmer while he told that to the press. We've been hearing for months about how the Trump administration has been working to convince the UK to tap their North Sea oil reserves. Some of the largest oil reserves on the planet are located on Britain's doorstep, which the UK basically says are off limits. Why? for environmental reasons, for climate change goals and promises that they made to address climate change. Well, we're living in the real world here, folks, and if you're serious, meaning Britain, if Britain's serious about curtailing Russian expansion into Ukraine, you gotta give China and India a reason to stop buying Russian energy. That's been like the unannounced policy for months. They're trying, the State Department's been trying to communicate this to their partners in the UK. Then today, Trump posting this: North Sea oil is a treasure chest for the United Kingdom. The taxes are so high, however, that it makes no sense. They have essentially told drillers and oil companies that we don't want you. Incentivize the drillers fast. A vast fortune to be made for the UK and far lower energy costs for the people. So we shall see what's going to happen in 10 days. In a way, this is positive. We know Trump's been doing everything he can to end the Ukraine-Russia war. He wants this war to end. He campaigned on it. He's already stopped like 5 other wars. We shall see what they come up with for their 10-day ultimatum. In another story, American consumer confidence busting right through economic expectations, coming in at a record 97.2, much better than expected. Watch.
Just came in 97.2, which is a strong number. By the way, Stu, the estimate for the consumer confidence reading was 95, so that is better than expected. We'll see if that has an impact on the market, but certainly better news on the consumer confidence number.
Meanwhile, as the U.S. economy continues to rock, outperform all expectations, the Federal Reserve meeting today to decide if they're going to cut rates or not. These FOMC meetings, they last for 2 days. Today's day 1, tomorrow's day 2, and it's not only up to Jerome Powell. Powell, as the chairman, makes the recommendation, but the 12 voting members make the final call. We know Powell's been pressured to the hilt. Will he be able to communicate how essential it is for these governors to decide or vote to cut rates? We'll keep you posted tomorrow as we learn what they decide to do. In another story, the landmark trade deal Trump just closed with the EU, making shockwaves across Europe. European countries very upset with Ursula von der Leyen for capitulating and agreeing to allow America to collect 15% tariffs and cut their tariffs to 0. The Germans expressing their frustration. Germany, the largest economy in Europe, very upset. Watch German Chancellor this morning, German Chancellor Merz, telling reporters, we lost. Europe lost these negotiations with Donald Trump. Watch.
Ergebnis nicht zufrieden im Sinne von, das ist jetzt gut so, sondern ich sage nur, mehr war offensichtlich angesichts der Ausgangslage, die wir mit den Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika hatten, nicht zu erreichen. Das heißt jetzt im Klartext, die deutsche Wirtschaft wird erheblichen Schaden nehmen.
All of Trump's retractors have been telling us for months that nobody wins a trade war. Well, clearly the U.S. just won, at least with this latest EU trade deal. In another story, Dems and the media growing ever more concerned about exactly what Ghislaine Maxwell knows, what she may be helping the DOJ with. CNN spending over 50% of their airtime these last few weeks on nothing other than the Epstein case, which is hilarious considering they hadn't covered Epstein at all for 5 years. Now all of a sudden, they can't stop talking about it. I wonder why, but they're very careful in how they cover it. Each of these segments tries to paint President Trump as like a child predator. Yes, that's what CNN has been doing. Sick, disgusting coverage. Watch.
Trump breaking his silence on what he says caused his close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein to crumble.
For years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth.
Well, you know, of course, we've heard from multiple guests, all of whom knew Trump and in different times and ways. They all agreed with one thing, that Epstein and Trump were once, quote, best friends. Now, of course, the big question is, what does that really mean when it comes to Trump? And if Epstein and Trump ended their long friendship, as Trump describes it, happening there, right? Because that Epstein hired people who worked for him. Well, who was the hired help that Epstein was stealing away that was so important? There are a lot of questions about this. The answers matter. And in a moment, I'm going to speak to people who have inside knowledge of the Epstein investigation and Trump and Epstein's relationship. But obviously, it's important that Trump chose to disclose these details tonight. It is a big turnaround from past answers as of late about what came between him and Epstein.
And when it comes to Maxwell, watch how they're already preparing their audience, preparing Democrats to not believe what Ghislaine Maxwell says. Remember, Todd Blanche, the deputy AG, met with Ghislaine for 2 full days last week to finally get the full story, see what really happened with this trafficking network, and see if she has any incriminating evidence on anyone else that the DOJ isn't aware of yet. Watch how nervous these people are about what she's saying. Watch.
We are just learning this hour that Jeffrey Epstein's ex-girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, was granted limited immunity in order to talk with Trump's personal attorney turned Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Now, what did this mean, this limited immunity? Well, it allowed Maxwell to provide information without any fear that anything she said that is truthful can be used. But Trump tried to blame Biden anyway for all of this, anything to make it go away. And now he is even dangling a pardon to the one person who is serving time for helping Epstein run a child sex trafficking ring. That, of course, is Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted liar who may end up in the position of actually being able to sink or save people whose names are in the Epstein files.
Well, I'm allowed to give her a pardon, but nobody's approached me with it. Nobody's asked me about it. It's in the news about that aspect of it, but right now it would be inappropriate to talk about it.
Right now it'd be inappropriate, he says. Not ever. Of course, Maxwell's attorney has been very clear she wants a pardon. He spoke out publicly on Friday, saying that they hope Trump acts in what they say is a right and just way.
Let me know what you think about this. Is it just me, or is it like blatantly obvious how disingenuous these people are? They're jumping on this story finally, but in this thinly narrowed, focused lens of hurting Donald Trump and not covering any other angle. Even yesterday, when Trump mentioned never going to the island, saying he was offered to go, but he's sure as damn glad he turned it down. Well, in that same sentence, he also was smart enough to mention Bill Clinton, saying, I didn't go, but Bill Clinton did like 28 times. CNN airing that, but cutting or snipping out that sentence, that part of the sentence with Bill Clinton. You can't make this up.
And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never went to the island, but Larry Summers, I hear, went there. He was the head of Harvard. And many other people that are very big people. Nobody ever talks about them. I never had the privilege of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island. Yeah.
President Trump says he never visited Jeffrey Epstein's private island. Listen.
I never had the privilege of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.
The bottom line is this story clearly going to hurt both sides. The best thing to do now, in my opinion, is just release everything. Everyone's expecting dirt on both sides to come out, so it just needs to land and let the public sort it out. Put it all out. That's what I say. If they don't, it's just going to continue looking like a cover-up. Just get it over with. Put it out so we can all see what really happened.